Any discussion of body horror should probably begin and end with David Cronenberg. Of course, other filmmakers have done it and done it impressively, but as the world heavyweight champion of the cinematic psychosexual returns to screens with Crimes of the Future, we need to look back at just why Cronenberg's particular brand of grotesque sits above and beyond the rest. So, here are 5 brilliant moments of Cronenberg body horror. Body horror is about blowing past the limits of humanity, how much a person can transform themselves physically and mentally, and when it's done properly, everything on screen should be felt by everybody watching. Whether that means there's a physically uncomfortable reaction or an emotionally disturbing one, David Cronenberg has done it, and in the most brilliantly executed moments in his filmography, he does it all at once. And it should be noted here, just to say it out loud if it wasn't obvious, this video, like Cronenberg's oeuvre, is going to be pretty gnarly. If you, like an audience at Cannes, get squeamish about body horror, maybe just switch to another tab and listen from here on out. Because, to start with,
I would like to scan all of you in this room, one at a time.
In probably the most iconic, or at least most well-known shot of the filmmaker's career, 10 minutes into Scanners, this happens. Scanners follows a man with highly advanced telepathic capabilities and the shady corporation attempting to control him and everybody like him. Telepathy itself is already an idea that expands what a human can actually do, so walking into the theater, we're primed to wonder about the extent of our capabilities as a species. And the head explosion, the brainchild of an early 80s special effects all-star team, is, on the surface, just really great gory filmmaking. Made out of gelatin skin and a plaster inner skull packed to the brim with whatever they could find.
Most of these were materials that were just excesses from the lab. There were some latex scraps, just bits and bobs of a lot of stringy stuff that we, figured would fly through the air a little bit better.
But also, I really did mean literally whatever.
We filled the head with literally leftover burgers and so on, because we were living on that crap.
And when a handful of attempts failed at getting the explosion quite right, special effects supervisor Gary Zeller kicked everybody off the set and put a shotgun round through the dummy head.
It just shot all over the place and it looked fabulous.
But the ingenuity it took to pull the shot off isn't why the moment is brilliant. While the moment of the exploding head is the moment from Scanners, it succeeds on the build-up it's punctuating. Rewinding to the beginning of the scene, the first scanner describes what it feels like to be scanned. In plain, almost emotionless dialogue, we learn that it's a painful ordeal. Then we see the painful ordeal unfold. The ringing begins in our ears. We see the characters struggling, and then bam! With a wholly unexpected shock, Cronenberg shows us just how powerful and dangerous scanners can be. And more than that, this moment is at the beginning of the film. Supposedly, early versions of the film had this scene come first, but proved to be too much too soon. So the final version of the film introduces us to the protagonist first, but around 10 minutes into the film's runtime, the exploding head happens early enough to stick with us for the rest of the movie. While ultimately the film doesn't do much else with body horror beyond squibs until we get to the final confrontation with Michael Ironside's Revok, every time we hear the ringing show up in the sound design or see an eye twitch in one of the characters, we feel that head explosion all over again. We know it's possible and we cringe accordingly. It's a moment where the brilliance is not so much about the build-up or the payoff or even the sheer goopiness of how they pulled it off, but about the way it sticks with us after we've seen it.
Why are you such a piece of human junk?
There really isn't any telling you apart, is there? Absolutely identical in every respect.
With all those other voices in your head, how can you hear your own voice? How can you develop a self-personality?
To say that medical instruments can be horrifying is an understatement. The trope of a cruel surgeon unveiling the tools of his trade in a horror movie is present from classics to the modern blockbuster. In Dead Ringers, Cronenberg takes advantage of the trope with an almost religious zeal.
We'll use these. Give us the tools and we will do the job.
With Dead Ringers, Cronenberg tells the story of twin brothers Beverly and Elliot Mantle, brilliant, respected, and award-winning gynecologists. The title sequence alone, featuring sketches of medieval medical instruments and diagrams, is enough to unsettle, but what follows is a slow-burn psychological thriller that, save for a few shocking moments here or there, would be hard to classify as any kind of horror, body or otherwise. The twins' proclivities for pretending to be one another are at minimum off-putting and at times disgusting, and by the time they've graduated to drug abuse and delusions, the horror of the film lies in our faith in the medical industry.
I didn't mean to question it.
One of the very first scenes finds the brothers accepting an award for their development of a revolutionary new instrument. They're a gynecological industry phenomenon, so when the so-called instruments to operate on mutated women, Bev's words, not mine, are presented, the brilliance is set up in those early scenes, but landed with the design of the moment. The blood-red scrubs being draped over Bev ceremoniously. The cut and design of them looks more like something the Pope might wear than any surgical scrubs you ever see on screen. And then,
We'll use these.
production designer Carol Spear led the team that made the instruments by starting with the more vicious-looking real-life surgical tools. But what makes these a brilliant entry into Cronenberg's body horror portfolio is how organic they look.
Then we looked at parts of the body, like bones, ligaments, so that we could kind of incorporate the mechanical part of that and body parts with it, so that they were sort of amalgamation of the two.
These might as well be casts of ancient sea creatures or claws clipped away from monsters. We'd seen glimpses of them before in blueprints, but to have them wheeled straight under our noses, knowing that the medical community is behind the doctor who created them, it gets at a fear that lives somewhere in our caveman brain. Somebody is about to do something unnatural with these tools, yet the tools themselves look violently natural. It creates a truly visceral reaction.
People are programmed to accept so little, but the possibilities are so great.
I can't go to them. It's too radical for them. We've always been too radical.
Existenz is not just a game.
What precisely is the goal of the game
They didn't buy it, Bev. I think they knew it was me.
that we're playing now?
You have to play the game to find out why you're playing the game.
With Existenz, Cronenberg explores everything from the potential of biotech to virtual reality and the place where they intersect. But gone are the cutaways to a computer board frying in scanners or transitional shots of traveling through telephone wires that were popular in the 90s. Everything in Existenz presents as real, which, when it comes to the fleshy design of the technology, is where the brilliance of the film comes through. Plenty of movies have played with the idea of reality not being real, either as a dream or a manufactured simulation. Usually, this is done through a sterile, streamlined lens. Movie dreams are rarely as weird as one's actual subconscious, and simulations are usually experienced through headsets, wires, and computers. Existenz takes a more organic approach, giving us a world where playing video games is like a cross between a prostate exam and an epidural. Players hook themselves to fleshy, pulsating computers called biopods, inserting umbilical-looking tubes into an artificial orifice called a bioport. This aperture is awkwardly located in the lower back, and its appearance is so anus-like it's nearly comical.
Hey!
But what makes it most unsettling is how normal it is within the context of the film. It's still a little weird, and Jude Law's character is skeptical, but he ultimately buys into it the same way we will accept nonsensical or bizarre situations in dreams. The overarching theme of Existenz is reality not seeming real, and by having its fake reality hinging on a scrotal piece of wetware completely obscures what's real and what's not within the film. In a reality where it's normal to insert fleshy tubes into your backside, how out of the ordinary is it to have Willem Dafoe installing a new hole in your body in his back alley clinic? How normal is it for Ian Holm to perform surgery on what's essentially a video game console with internal organs? Virtual reality itself is presented as run-of-the-mill in the movie as well. VR, and to an extent any sort of gaming, is a way that we extend the boundaries of our human experience, which is of course part of the whole deal inherent with body horror.
The hell is that?
And beyond the not-so-subtle imagery of being attached to a gaming uterus via an umbilical cord, Cronenberg treats everything in the film, no matter how absurd, as though it's not even a little bit of a surprise. Existenz's game within a game within a game premise could have been executed just as well while relying on futuristic technology that's readily identifiable as such, but it's all the more memorable and unsettling thanks to its grotesquely organic interface.
I'm very worried about my body. Where are our real bodies?
Television is reality, and reality is less than television.
I'm not sure here, where we are, is real at all.
After all, there is nothing real outside our perception of reality.
Videodrome is easily the most meta entry on this list, mostly because it holds a mirror up to its audience and uses body horror as a way for us to explore television's effect on humanity as both individuals and as a society. The film follows Max, the president of a local TV station that specializes in suggestive programming. On the hunt for the next new thing, he discovers Videodrome, a plotless show of people being tortured and murdered. And if you're even watching Videodrome in the first place, it's clear that Max is just like us, the viewers, slowly being desensitized to what he sees on TV and constantly on the hunt for a more extreme visual experience. Little does Max know that as he watches the Videodrome broadcast, the signal is giving him a brain tumor that also causes him to hallucinate. More than that, he's unwittingly become a pawn in a war for the control of people's minds.
I want you, Max.
What's great about Videodrome's body horror is how the film manifests its characters' ideas and philosophies into physical objects, which, being the point of body horror, makes for a way more visceral viewing experience. And there's no better example of this than Cronenberg's brilliant use of, and I'm sorry there's no other way to say this, the torso slit. Cronenberg's use of the slit simultaneously leverages hallucination to question the objectivity of reality, while also presenting ideas as physical objects to be ingested by Max. Whether it's Max hiding his own gun in his Chekhov's slit, or later being brainwashed with a Betamax tape, you can't help but have, and pardon the pun, a gut reaction to it. The violent insertion of the tape, as well as Woods' performance, is more akin to brain rape instead of the identical but tamer term brainwashing. The visual metaphor of the slit is at the core of the power of body horror's ability for filmmakers to manifest abstract fears and anxieties as grotesque violations of the human body, and Cronenberg masterfully uses it to visualize the conscious and unconscious effect media has on us.
Long live the new flesh.
And that brings us to the crux of everything Cronenberg does with body horror. The little narrative through line to a career's worth of pushing boundaries. Just how far can we contort our bodies and our natures before we're no longer human at all?
Your body has already done a lot of changing, but that's only the beginning.
The flesh. It should make the computer crazy.
You have to go all the way now. A total transformation.
I haven't taught the computer to be made crazy by the flesh.
Long live the new flesh.
So I'm going to start teaching it now.
In Cronenberg's world, curiosity and the rush of power are what drive the innovative minds in his films to push their own limits. Inevitably, however, chasing those qualities is followed by the complete loss of humanity, and that is the key to Cronenberg's work and its lasting importance. His bodies, while revolting, are also deeply tragic. We wince as we watch his protagonists lose themselves to their twisted flesh, but we mourn a little too, as we understand what led them there in the first place. In 1986's The Fly, Dr. Seth Brundle, played with all the usual charisma of the reliably charming Jeff Goldblum, is taught the ultimate lesson in hubris when an attempt to teleport himself in a machine of his own creation entwines his body with a housefly's. A thrilling physical rush is quickly followed by the sinister reality that the likable Brundle is becoming the hideous Brundle Fly, a half-man, half-fly that cannot rightly survive as either.
No, I'm not Seth Brundle anymore. I'm the offspring of Brundle and Housefly.
The film tracks the ambitious scientist slowly coping with the fact that the fly part is taking over until we get to the end. Designed by Cronenberg's usual team of collaborators, including Chris Wallace, who by this point was great at making flesh melt off of things, Brundlefly is a practical effects marvel. From spinning sets allowing him to walk on the ceiling to the subtle changes in makeup through the entire film's runtime, Seth Brundle's descent is meticulously charted. But the final scene in The Fly is arguably the most hideous and most brilliant, as his attempt to fuse with his pregnant girlfriend Ronnie in the telepod suggests any part of Brundle the man is finally gone. The flapping thing that crawls out of the telepod after the attempt is bungled is his ultimate punishment. He is now man, fly, and machine fused, every part of his failed science experiment writ large through his body on a molecular level. It's disgusting, for sure, but Cronenberg drives the tragedy home with a glimmer of Brundle still lurking underneath as he lifts up Ronnie's shotgun and implores her to kill him. We see the disgusting creature Brundle has become and the impact it has on the people around him in the same frame as Ronnie is forced to reckon with the thing in front of her. That we feel such revulsion yet cry alongside Ronnie as she lifts up the gun speaks to masterful storytelling on Cronenberg's part, reminding us that nobody does body horror better. What do you think? Did we leave out your favorite bit of Cronen horror? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to IGN Movies and TV for more CineFix movie lists.